Hello, everybody, and welcome to the regular Sunday show called What's Going On Here. Calvin and Bob bringing it to you. Bob Venn, Calvin Cassidy's got the camera, and I'm sitting here in Ellenberg Center, New York, and
Ellenberg, just plain
Ellenberg, playing old Ellenberg here.
Corners, you can call it corners.
Oh, I got right, not the center, Ellenberg, and we're at St. Edmund's Church, and we're here to talk, reminisce with Father Menard, who just celebrated his 40th anniversary, and old friends, Father. How are you?
Good to see you.
We are a little bit later this week at doing our show, and we've been getting a few here for Ellenberg here in the past, this past year. We did Christmas Mass here last year,
Right.
and then you had your 40th anniversary,
Right.
and we did the story about the book and so forth here. So Ellenberg has been, I don't know if we did Sam in the past year or not. Was that the past year?
No.
Okay. Let's talk a little bit, Father. Start off your 40th anniversary. Does it seem 40 years?
No, it seems like yesterday.
Oh, not
Really,
not
when you look
really
back.
yesterday, huh?
No, I guess it isn't. But it seems that way.
Is that right?
When you look back. Right.
You've had a happy 40 years?
A happy 40 years.
Healthy 40 years, too. It looked like you're quite
Very
healthy,
healthy.
huh?
So far.
Yeah, you know, some of the priests, Father Gardner's had his problem. We went and talked with Father Gardner after he had his operation, I think, and he was celebrating his 40th, I think, about that time.
A year ago.
A year ago. And we'd like to, you're a fixture in the North Country, certainly.
Yes.
All right. So tell us now, let's go back a little bit. You were born in Mooers or Mooers Forks?
Moors.
Mooers.
Moors, New York.
Tell us about your family.
Uh,
Your mother and your father, who was she before she was married and so
right,
forth?
yeah. My mom's name was Adele Arquette, and Dad is Bernard Menard, and he worked for Fred West for years and years, construction company in Rouse's Point, and then he and Vic went on their own for the last 25, 30 years of his construction business. They were partners in the West Lumber Company. As far as Dad and Mom, they're just normal parents. Very much home people. Never went out anywheres, except once in a great while to a family party or something. But everything was done family. Dad would always take all Sunday afternoon after Mass, and we would travel here and there or go for a picnic or look over different views and or visit family members and so forth. He very much down to earth and very much a home, and always had a great deal of concern for all of us as children, and was always there. That was the whole thing.
There must have been a time then when it'd take two cars to go for a ride on Sunday, didn't
Just
it?
about. Yes.
Did you all get in one car?
Oh, well, the family was spread out, so the first half of the family we were able to travel together, but then the second half, all of us older fellows were all gone
Okay.
and had left, either going to college or going into the service.
Uh-huh.
And so
Now, back in those days, the women, the mother usually wasn't working outside the home.
No.
Your mother never worked outside.
No.
She certainly worked inside
Yeah.
with the family she had. Now, how many were there altogether?
13.
You had 13 children.
Right, yeah. 13 with me.
Yeah. You were number one.
I'm number one.
I mentioned that before, and you're still number one?
I'm still number one, I hope, but I'm not sure.
So you were, we might as well find out, what year were you born?
October 24th, 1928.
1928.
Mhm.
That means I'm just a little older than you, Father.
Yes, it
I was
could be.
born in June of that year. That was a great year, wasn't
That was
it?
a great
That was
year,
a good
for
year.
sure.
Did you live where your father was when he passed away? Right.
That's same place, the
Same place.
homestead right from the beginning,
Uh-huh.
and always lived there. In fact, most of the children were all born right at home.
Is that
Because
right?
That's the way it was in
Uh-huh.
those days. The doctor would come.
Uh-huh. Did your grandparents own that house before that?
No. Uncle Alec owned it
Okay.
and sold it to Dad.
Okay. Now, has it always been Menard? Or was it ever Manor? M-A-N-O-R?
No,
Never.
it was
huh?
always Menard,
Okay.
except in school, because of the problem of languages and so forth. We always went in school by Manor.
You know, I remember you at Menard. See,
Yeah, that's
when I was going to school here in Mooers too, and Okay, so there were how many of you in that first group? 5 or 6 in that?
5 or 6.
Let's go with who were they? Came along, and who was the next?
Well, then it was Leonard.
Yes.
And then Clarence. Clarence is a priest, and he teaches at Notre Dame Seminary down in Louisiana, New Orleans. He has been there for years and years. He's a scholar. He's the scholar of the family. Just loves books. Even when he was a kid, he would rock one of the children and read a book.
Is that right?
Always reading. Never wanted to go out to the barn or never wanted to do any of the outside work. He just stayed inside and helped Mom.
Now, in the barn, what barn? You had cows?
Yes, we had cows across the road in a barn. Not too many, but just enough to keep the family going and so forth. Something for us boys to do.
You have chickens too?
Chickens.
Raise your own eggs,
pigs,
huh? Yeah. Oh, you ate well then, didn't you, huh?
A couple of cows.
Did your mother bake her own bread?
No.
Didn't do that, huh?
Didn't do that.
That was a thriving little corner where you
Yes,
were.
it was.
Back then,
Yes,
Thorns Corner,
Thorns,
it was known? Yeah. Was there ever a store right in that area?
No, there was a famous blacksmith shop there, and Mr. Rabideau operated it for years and years. It was owned by Rob Thorne, the owner of the big farm on the corner.
Now, when you were going to school in, let's say, the late 30s, did you walk or did you have a bus?
Well, we had to walk.
You had to walk, huh?
We had to walk morning and at night. The whole group would walk down. And that was for several years.
Did you hold hand with your brother?
Oh, yes.
Or did you fight a little bit without hand?
I'm sure we did. But we would travel the whole group. Uncle Alec's children were all walking down, and ourselves, and then Mickey, Chalky, and all them.
There weren't quite as many cars on the road, obviously.
No. It was, from the house to the school was 1 mile.
Imagine in the morning when you're going to school, you saw a lot of milk trucks, and the milk truck must be picking up milk. That was about it in the morning.
That was about it.
Okay, so it was Leonard and Clarence and you, and who else in that first group?
And then Cecile and Rita. She went on and studied to become a nurse. And then it was Teresa, married to Ray Lavoie of Champlain.
Yeah.
She became a dental hygienist as well.
Now, did you do in that first group?
In that first group, and that was it.
Okay,
That's
now,
pretty much ended.
When you were growing up, you were in the same childhood as most other people, except that you didn't get as many toys at the house. Your mother and father had to share their love and their money and their things.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Did your mother and father ever say to you at that time you got to share? You know, because today the word is always you got to share. Yeah. I never heard that when I was growing up.
I never did either. No, I never did either.
I guess we just did.
Just did it, and that was it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Did you and Clarence ever talk about the religious life when you were young? Ever have any thoughts of that?
No, really. I never talked about it. Clarence was the first one to go into the religious life. He joined the Oblates. Back then, the Oblates operated St. Peter's Church in Plattsburgh, and their school. And he met one of the fathers there, and he sort of liked the idea of being in community. That was his whole idea. So he went off to Bucksport, Maine, and for his high school training, and then Bar Harbor for his college, and Natick, Massachusetts for his theology, and so he was the first one.
How many years before you was he?
He wasn't ordained before because he just started on high school level.
All right. Now, you mentioned St. Peter, the Oblate Fathers there. For many years, there were no priests from our diocese that really served St. Peter's. Is that correct?
That's right.
A lot of people don't know that,
That's right. It's only been fairly recent.
That's right. You remember when the person who became the mayor of Plattsburgh, at that time, he was not part of the diocese as far as being a priest up here, was he?
No. He was an oblate.
Then after that, this changed.
It changed several years after that.
There's nothing other parish like that in the diocese that had other than their own priests in their diocese, in their own parish?
Oh, there were at least several parishes that had religious.
But on a continuing basis like that?
On a continuing basis
Is that right?
for years and years, yeah. Right. I don't think there are any left, if I can recall.
So
that have that long-standing.
If a priest told me that when he was young, he never got in trouble and never had any problems, that wouldn't necessarily be true.
No, it wouldn't be true.
At least as far as you know, huh? What do you remember about school and teaching? You remember Mr. Vogan, certainly?
Yes, and Mr. Charles.
Yes,
and
I had him one year.
Amos Musso, of course, was very famous. And
Charles Knapp?
And Charles Knapp, right. Yeah.
We're going to get in trouble. We start naming some here, but of course I was here 2 years, but Doris King, I never had her in school.
She was excellent.
She was, yes,
in English.
And so many of the names in Mooers was a good school, had a good educational system.
Yeah, very good.
When I say was, it still has, but when it was a school of its own, had very good teachers, excellent teachers, excellent teachers. All right, before we get into any more of this, we'll take a short break. We're at St. Edmund's Church in Ellenburg, and we're talking with the pastor, Father Gilbert Menard. Father Gilbert, they call him. You got to be careful, because there was another very famous Father Gilbert in this area that had a lot to do with Father becoming a priest. We'll get back into that when we get back. Of course, we mentioned about problems and some of the things that happened. Calvin said you're going to tell us a little bit about, give us some of the things that were funny what happened when you were 10, 12 years old. Do you remember anything that you could relate to us, what you and Clarence or you and Leonard did that...
We were always playing tricks on one another, and Ernest Menard was my big friend.
He was your cousin?
First cousin, lived right across the road, and we were always playing together, and always building houses, tree houses, and so forth. One incident, we went exploring across the river, the Great Chazy River. Of course, the house was right on the river, and crossed a second little brook, and then we climbed up a great big bank, and as we looked up, we saw what we thought was an Indian. Back then, we were young, and we used to go to the movies in Mooers and Champlain and see cowboys and Indians, as you know. And so we all got scared. We started running down the hill, and we just tumbled over each other and ran across the river, went to see Rob Thorne, and mentioned to him that there was an Indian up on the hill. And we were scared. And he says, no, he says, that's not an Indian. He says, it's a fox that's out there. He says, I've seen it in that field. He said, the fox stuck his head out of the hole, and we didn't know the difference.
But Thorne, is named after the Thorne family that was there? Is that the Thorne's Corners?
Right.
What did they do? Did they...
They were farmers.
Oh, they were farmers right there on the corner?
Big farm.
Yeah. So you knew the Chandlers. You grew up in Joel, too, just up the street from you, and poor Mr. Charles Chandler, that was blind, and walked that road every day
with his dog. Very good.
Now, let me think. I guess we were also mentioning off camera that did you have your own room at the house? Your own bedroom?
No, we didn't. We shared bedrooms, 2 per room, but it was a big house with 6 bedrooms, and of course with part of the family being there, and then as we grew up and left and went on to college or the army or the service, then the rooms were all set up for everybody else, for the younger members of the family.
Okay, so you went to Mooers School until what grade?
Until through the 9th.
Through the 9th.
And then transferred over to St. Mary's in Champlain. Now,
did you have any idea at the time that you were thinking of becoming a priest?
No.
Okay,
no.
That's not why you switched.
No. The reason I switched was St. Mary's had a great program for typing and bookkeeping and shorthand, all that secretarial training. In fact, the students from there would go right over to Eris Labs almost immediately to work. And that's what I wanted. That's what I wanted to get into. And Mooers didn't have the program. And I spoke about it to Mr. Vogan, if the program was coming into existence in Mooers, and he says, no, he says, not at least for 2 or 3 more years. And so that's when I switched over to St. Mary's.
How did you get to school at St. Mary's?
Traveled with Dad. Dad had to go to work, so he would leave me at school about 7:30 in the morning, and then I'd work, do some homework. And then at night,
You had to wait
I
there?
had to wait until 5.
In the school?
In the school or outside, didn't make a difference. We were downtown.
Were you the only one from Mooers that you were going there?
No, Olivet and Doris LaValle.
Okay. Did they
Also-
ride with your dad too?
They drove with their father.
Their father?
Because Oliver worked in Ross's farm.
Uh-huh. Now, did your dad do much building around the house, or did he do any part-time building?
Around our home?
Yeah, well, or for anybody else when he was off from not working with the West family?
No, he always stuck pretty much with the West.
He must have been doing very well at West when
Yeah.
he could afford to raise a family like he did.
Right. He did. He worked up from the bottom all the way up.
Uh-huh.
And he was a very smart man and learned
Very well
quickly.
known, yes, yeah.
Did it all through experience. Never went even through high school, but graduated in the 8th grade. Then he had to go and work on the farm when Grandpa got awful sick for a year and a half. So he left and went to work.
You know, we in reading an old North Countryman, when they had their fire and hit by lightning at the Cooperville Church, and when they were working, he fell off the roof
Fell off the roof, yes.
at the Cooperville Church.
Right, it was, he was working around the chimney, and they had a great big boom that was up there, and the operator, there was one beam that let loose, and the operator wasn't able to hang on to it, and it hit Dad in the back, and he never saw it, so he just fell down, broke both ankles, landed right on his feet, 30 feet.
Yeah, just imagine, he was off work for
Oh, he was off work for almost a year.
Yeah. Now, how do you maintain a family and do that? Because
Well-
you weren't all born at that time. That was
No,
early.
that's right, but Fred West
Took
was
care of
awful
him right
good.
along?
Took care of
That
him
was
right
great,
along. That's
great,
the way-
yes.
That's the way it worked.
Yeah.
Had to, that was his doings.
Uh-huh. Okay, let's get back to Father. Now, you're down in Champlain now in your sophomore year?
Sophomore year.
And you were planning on going to Arist or
Paris
office, you
or
know?
business or
Uh-huh.
anywhere.
Uh-huh. And then you were in Baltimore, I take it, at
I was in
Mooers
office.
worked at the
yes,
time, huh?
Yes.
So where did the parish divide for Mooers and Mooers?
Thorn's Corner.
Thorn's Corner. So you were in the first house or
First
second
house.
house, right?
First or second house to go to Mooers.
To go to Mooers Forks, yeah.
Mhm.
Then you were an altar boy.
I was in office.
And Father Gilbert had a practice of talking to the boys about becoming a priest. At least let them know that it's available.
Yes,
huh?
yes. He did it my senior year at St. Mary's is when he put the bug in my ear and asked me to consider it and think about it, and I did. And then Father Taylor of this parish, St. Edmunds in Ellenburg, also was a big help to me. So I came and saw him and spoke.
How did
about
you
it.
know him here in Ellenburg?
We used to come and visit him all the time.
Your parents.
My parents and also Monsignor Gilbert.
Was he from the area? Other than being stationed here?
He was from Chateaugay.
Oh, so he was from the general area.
Right from the general area.
So at the time, except for Father Gilbert, was there anybody from Mooers that was a priest? That had ever been into the religion that you knew of?
Oh yes, yes, from Mooers Forks and from St. Anne's, yes, there was Monsignor Poirier, Father Frank White, Monsignor White
yes.
was there. He was the immediate
That's
for
right.
me and Clarence.
Excuse me.
And then Father Boucher from Mooers Forks, he joined the Edmondites. So there were several at the
Okay.
time.
All right, you got out of St. Mary's in what year?
47.
And then what did you do?
And then immediately in the fall, I registered and entered Waddles Hall.
You had the idea that you were
I
going to
had
become
the
a
idea
priest.
of finding out.
Were you sure?
No, I wasn't
weren't
sure,
sure,
by
huh?
any means.
How big of a class were you in?
We started out with 16 students, and we ended up with 8, which is a very good average
Uh-huh.
as far as number of students.
Okay, before we get into Autumn Hall, we'll take another short break. We appreciate your watching Hometown Cable and your comments. We hope you're tuning in every day, and especially on Sunday when we bring you to the various people in the area and the things that are happening. And your comments are always very well appreciated. And we're seeing some new names up on the board there for patrons. We hope there are others who become patrons to Hometown Cable. We just saw, I noticed last night, Ken and Teresa LaValle's name was up there as I looking through last night. I had the pleasure of having the Mother's Day brunch with them at the candlelight with my wife and I and their daughter, and we were sitting at the same table and had a nice chat. We'll be right back. We're on our way to Wadham's Hall, but Calvin just asked as we were off camera, would you be a priest today if it weren't for Father Gilbert?
No, I would say not. Because I was a very shy person, and I was thinking about bookkeeping and secretarial work along those lines, and he's the one that put the bug in my ear to give it a try at Wadham's Hall Seminary, and I certainly was not sure.
Were you reluctant at all?
No.
You just thought it would be a good idea? Your parents, were your parents happy about that? They weren't one way or the other. They left it up to me. Now, Clarence had already been interested at this point.
He had been interested, and at this point, he was still finishing up his high school. Yeah.
But with the plan of going on from
with
there.
The plan, definitely, of going on.
How long was Father Gilbert in Mooers Forks?
Oh, my.
Long time.
He was 45 years.
45 years there? It's got to be quite a record in the diocese, huh?
It is one of the records.
Was he from the area at all originally?
No, he was from Berlin, New Hampshire.
Yeah.
Where
you know, when I went to Mass one night in Mooers Forks, and Father McCaslin was talking about the religious that came from Mooers Forks, and he said they always asked Father Gilbert how he ever got so many priests and religious sisters and so forth from that parish. And he said, I asked them. If you don't ask somebody, they won't have the idea, I guess. Exactly. And that happened to you.
And that's what happened to me. The only exception would have been Clarence. He had an idea. And he communicated with the oblates. And he was pretty much sure of himself when he started to study.
When we were growing up back then, the 4-letter words we hear today, we may have knew what they were, but we didn't use them very often, did we, Father?
Oh, no.
It's certainly not in the house, ever.
Not in the house, and not even at school.
No.
Because I remember once on the playground, Amos Musso used to come out and play with us, touch football and so forth, and one of us boys let out a swear word, and Amos heard it about 50 feet away, and he came right up, and he gave us a lecture right then and there. And that's the way those teachers were. They formed us. Not only did they teach, but I always felt that they formed us in what was right and what was wrong.
I don't know today, they say today that the young people don't even realize they're saying these things, and it's become part of their vocabulary. But it certainly has changed. It certainly has changed, and not for the better when it comes to that. I used to tell people, they said, do you swear? I said, no, but I know all the words. I did know the words, but I didn't use them very often. Now, okay, you go on to Wadham's Hall. What happens when you get to Wadham's Hall?
Basically, Wadham's is a college, a 4-year college, where you go through a liberal arts course, English, math, sciences, languages, and then the last 2 years in philosophy, along with English all the way through, and history.
That's your junior and senior year?
Junior and senior year. But every year we were involved in public speaking, obviously, because we had to be trained in that. But it was pretty much the old liberal arts formation.
So is that where you lost your shyness? You talk about being shy and probably never spoke in front of people an awful lot. You probably would get away from it if you could.
In fact, I never did until I entered Wadhams.
Uh-huh.
And if I may interject one interesting point, I mentioned it on the 40th anniversary at Lake Placid, where the 40th year members were honored last week. And I mentioned an incident. My first day at Wadhams, starting college, we went into speech class, and Monsignor Bailey said, now we're going to start having each and every one of you students go up there and give a 5-minute talk on anything you want. So starting with the alphabet, Father Alban got up and he gave a talk, and then all the others, Downs, Riani, Buckley, and so forth. And then it came to M. I said, oh my gosh. So I went up and I spoke for about 2 minutes and I blocked. Everything went blank. So I just got right off the stage and came right down to my seat. And Monsignor Bailey looked at his watch. He says, Menard, you still have 3 more minutes. Get back up there. So I went right back up, and to this day I don't know what I said. But then he was very kind, because afterwards he called me in his office and he said, you know, if I had not sent you back up there, he says, you never would have been able to get up there again and talk. He says, in fact, you would have left. That would have been your outing from Wadhams Hall.
You know, when you leave home, you've probably never been away from home very much.
No, never.
You go to college anywhere, and it's the first couple of months are a problem. You get lonesome, and you wonder, what am I doing here, and everything else. And now you're into a new one, whether you're going to be a priest or not. That's also in the back of your head. It's got to be a tough time.
Yes, it is. Yeah, the adjustment. You know,
did you room 2 in a room, or did you have your own room?
No, we had our own room. Yeah, we were able to have.
So you had over 100 there? Well, no, there weren't over 100.
No, because this is not the new seminary.
Okay.
This was the old seminary, and it was just diocesan students. So we were about, for 4 years, we were about 30 students.
So you have very small classes.
Very small classes.
So when there's time to speak, you all get your chance.
Every week we had a chance.
Uh-huh. What about the money? It costs money to go to college. Did your parents have to pay for this?
No, Dad paid part of it, what he could, a little bit, and then part of it was the bishop's fund, and I also worked.
Was the bishop's fund in effect then?
It was called the old 4-in-1.
Oh yeah, all right.
Remember, there were
I remember some, yes.
Different purposes for the fund, and I don't know exactly what they were, but the main one was always the support of Wadhams Hall. And then you could get loans and so forth. But I worked. I volunteered to work helping out the elderly janitor, Mr. Pinkerton, and I fired the old coal furnace for 4 years. That's what I did. And I got paid for it, and that more than paid my tuition. You know,
you talk about getting loans, but when you get out with the pay you're getting as an assistant pastor or something, you took a little while to pay for a loan.
Yes, except once you got into the major seminary, the whole tuition was paid for, half of it by the diocese, and that's where you took out a loan and insurance, and then you paid back on the insurance. I took an insurance for 15 years, but it wasn't very much. You didn't have to pay much.
Yeah. What was your best recollections of Wadhams Hall?
I think the students were great, and we had excellent professors. Really were concerned and really put the work right to us too. There was no fooling around.
And even if you don't go on to be a priest, you leave there with a very good education.
Excellent.
And there are many, I should say, there are a significant number who stopped at that point,
That's right.
or in the sophomore and junior years.
And Wadhams Hall is accredited with the Middle States Accrediting Agency too, which means that you're a bona fide college.
Did you date much while you were in high school?
Not much. No, I did a few times.
All right, and that could be a big adjustment when you get to as you're going into Wadhams. You figured that you're marrying the Christ, so to speak, and you are not going to be. I guess that's the sisters. I shouldn't say you're married in Christ, but you're not going to be have a family as such, and that would be a big adjustment, I would think, for a lot of people.
You have to think it out.
You certainly do. You certainly do. Did you have discussions with other students there about this, as to whether what am I doing here?
We always did.
You always did, huh?
Always did.
You reinforced each other, or
we reinforced each other, and not only that, we also had a good spiritual director, Monsignor Charbonneau, that would come in, and we would go to him every 2 weeks. He rotated, and we would always bring up any problems or concerns, and he would question us and guide us, and so he was very excellent, very good.
Now, when you got during those 4 years, you're not working with any parish when you come home for the summer.
No.
You came home with your regular vacation for the summer.
I worked for Dad on construction.
You did. So you know how to drive a nail and saw a board? You know that well?
We know it. But mostly painting. I love to paint. So
you do?
Dad would always put me on the paint brigade. Whenever there was painting to be done, that's what I would do.
Okay. When you graduated now from Wadhams Hall, you were pretty sure then you were going to go on?
I was very sure by then.
And then when there were 8 of you who graduated, you said?
Let me see, graduating, there were 12 or 13.
I beg your pardon, they dropped it.
Yeah, but 8, some had dropped from 16 to 13.
Okay.
And then at the end of the 4 years, it went down to 8.
8. Then,
that went on for the major seminary.
Where did you go from there to major?
I went to St. Bernard's in Rochester.
Did any of your class go with you to St.?
Oh, yes. There was J. Lee Snow and myself that were sent there.
And that's 2 years?
4 years.
4 years more. Now you're getting into mostly religion at this point?
At this point, it's all theology.
Theology.
The study of the Word of God, the Bible, and doctrine, and morals, and so forth, history, the history of the church, and then again into public speaking, obviously.
Did you have good marks, Father, when you were in high school?
In high school, yes. I was a good student.
And in college, 4 years, you did well?
Yes.
Theology?
Theology, I was right up at the top of my class.
Great.
The second all the way through.
You were second.
Number 2, never number 1.
Well, you were number 1 in your family. That was enough number 1 for one person.
No, I always enjoyed studies, and never really had any difficulties in learning. That was one good.
Is it tough at theology school?
Oh, yes.
Tough,
yes, it's tough.
You're getting into really deep,
Right.
Really deep. But that's when you make or break a priest? Yes?
Everything was in Latin.
Oh, come on. You didn't learn in Latin.
We had to learn. The lectures were, half the class were in Latin, and then half the class was in English. But all your exams in doctrinal studies, in the moral study, canon law, and scriptures were all in Latin. Latin exams.
We're going to take another short break, but before we do, when we get into Latin, I'm going back as in the cemetery committee, and I'm going back through all the daily journals, where people die, and I'm back to 1931, and at that time, since about 1946 back, it's in Latin.
All in Latin.
All
the church records.
Little paragraph. It's not one line, and you got they wrote a little paragraph about dying and so forth, and it's in Latin, and I'm having a terrible time figuring. Well, I know that they died before they were buried. It's easy to see the 16th and the 19th. I know which one they died, but there are other things. I don't know whether it's their wife or their mother or their father. I'm having lots of trouble with. Really am. And I've gone and asked Father Morgan a couple times, and I'm doing it at home, and I bring the book back, and it really is a problem. Then it's a longhand, so that even if I could read it and it would print it, it's one thing, but this is longhand, and you can't read people's English many times. This is Latin. It's really a problem.
Worse.
But we'll be right back, and we'll tell you about more of the problems and the good times that Father had at the theology school, then when he first became a priest, etc. I haven't ever heard it before either. Well, you can see how little I know. The biggest surprise I've had is you're talking about your theology mostly, or majority of it, is in Latin.
Mm-hmm.
And now, as we were talking a little bit off camera again, you had to lose some nice, good people.
Yes, we
because
did.
of that.
Yes,
Huh?
yes.
So you had a double pressure on you. Not only the tough course, but you had to learn it in Latin.
Yes. And the reason was it was the universal language of the church at that time, Latin was. And so you had to be very familiar with it. You had to use it in all our classes. All the exams were written, the questions were in Latin and were to be written in Latin.
So when you, now today it's English?
All English.
And then if you're French, it's in French. And if
Right,
you're in
yeah.
Spanish, it's in Spanish. At that time, it was all Latin, no matter who
All
you were.
Latin, who you were or where you were.
Okay. So you were 4 years at Rochester?
4 years at Rochester, and one, to sum it up, I think, you see, we got into a lot of work in the community. Like, one year we had to go and visit hospitals. And one of the hospitals I was assigned to was a hospital where most of the people were dying, young men dying, mostly from sexual diseases like syphilis and gonorrhea and so forth, which was out of control back in those days. And then one year we had to do street preaching. Get on the corner on a box, not literally, but get at a corner, and there people would gather and we would give a little talk. One year we had to work in the prison system.
This is while you were at theology?
While we were in theology. And then one year, the final, either the first year or the last year, we were to teach religious instructions, release time classes.
At that time, had you made any commitment at all? Do you make any formal commitment that you're going to be a priest at
Yes,
that point?
it's an ongoing thing. So at the end of the first year, the first step would be the tonsure, whereby you would sort of make an intention to go on for the priesthood. And then your second year, you would become an acolyte and a reader. So those were the next two steps in the process. And then in the third year, at the end of the third year, you became a subdeacon. And then in the beginning of the fourth year, you were ordained a deacon. And there you would go out in parishes on weekends and help out different pastors.
During this time, were you wearing a collar at all? Do you have a collar after the first
year? Just the last year.
Just the last year. And
then only if you were out, if you went out.
Okay. During the summer, when you come back to your parish, did you help around the parish? Like taking census or anything like that? Not later?
Not too much. No, that was much later. The fourth year I did.
Okay.
The last year, when I was a deacon.
Okay. Now at the end of the fourth year, are you done then? Is that when you're finished?
We're done.
You're
and
done.
Then we're ordained.
And then you were ordained back in your own parish, your own diocese,
own
rather.
diocese
right?
up at Ogden.
And there were how many at that? 8?
8 of us.
8 of you. If you saw last week's or this week's North Country Catholic, we saw that you had 5 or 6 names in there.
6. Mm-hmm.
6 I saw in there, and surprised that a couple of them doesn't seem like you're. I don't think I'm very old either, Father. That must be why, because it doesn't seem like it could be 40 years.
I know it.
All right. So when you were ordained, your family is there and very, very proud of you. Where was Clarence at this time?
Clarence was finishing up his theologiate down at Natick, Massachusetts.
Okay. So you were ordained first. This time, does Roland come along at this point? Is he
Roland was just starting his studies.
Starting his studies.
But he was starting on the high school level down in Bucksport, Maine. But then he got sick, came back and finished his studies at St. Mary's in Champlain.
Do you think his brothers had any influence on him, yourself and Clarence?
It could have been. I mean, maybe indirectly. We never pushed him or never spoke about it to him. I think the big influence was Father Paul Bayet, who was the pastor at St. Mary's in Champlain at the time.
Which I understand is in the process of retiring.
Yep, and he was the one that put the bug into his ear and Father Roland always went to him, and at the end of the 4 years, that's where he spoke to him and made the decision. Yeah.
People in our area over on the eastern end of our district would remember Father Paul very well in the St. Mary's area. He was, quote unquote, the unofficial pastor for years.
Yes,
Father DeRozier was there at the time and was not as active. We have a book here, 1963 graduates, and one of the things we noticed that we're a little ahead of our time here, but this is Father Menard. Father Gilbert Menard was teaching there, and the book was dedicated to him in 1963. And here is Father Paul Biet. He had a brother who was a priest.
Right. Mm-hmm. Francis.
And he passed away several years ago.
He passed away several years
and
ago.
I think it affected Father Paul much more
Yes,
than
it
people
did.
think.
Yes.
And he
has a sister that's a nun.
Yep.
Sister Jean.
They were from North Bangor area originally. Knew him very, very well. Good friend of mine back then. We used to have arguments. I stopped and saw him one day in Burke, and he said, "Bob," he said, "you have mellowed." I said, "You have mellowed to realize I have mellowed." But I really had a lot of good discussions with Father Biet, as we were recently talking about tithing.
Mm-hmm.
Father Paul Biet is the one who started it in our area originally. That was his idea, and a lot of things were done with... And, of course, while we were here, this is Father DeRozier we were mentioning, that they were there together. And then Father Rivette succeeded Father DeRozier, and here it says Lee J. Snow, and Father said it's J. Lee Snow, as he knew him, and you would know probably you were with him in school for 8 years. 8 years. And where is he now?
He's retired and down in Florida, West Palm Beach, but he still works in the parish, helps out on weekends, and he works in a Catholic high school. He works there, and he still does a lot of marriage cases for the diocese.
When he was with Father Rivette, I think in Malone.
Right.
And then when Father Rivette came to Champlain, and Father Biet, I think, went on somewhere else, Father Snow came down very, very soon after that, and it was one of our assistants, or as they say today, they aren't assistants anymore.
Associates.
They're associates today. All right. When you got out of, you became a priest, you were ordained. What did you do at first?
I was assigned, first of all, to St. Agnes Church in Lake Placid to help out a very elderly pastor who wasn't well at all. See, back in those days, your priest did not retire. There was no place for them to go. We didn't have any pension fund in the diocese or anything. So what would happen, the older priest would stay on, and then a younger priest would come in and help them out and do most of the administrative work of a parish. This is what happened in Champlain, for example, with Father Paul helping out Father DeRozier. Father DeRozier was elderly, but Father Paul Bayet did everything, as you know. I mean, construction. And he did a tremendous amount of good there for the school. He was a schoolman.
Yeah, you had to have a lot of vigor and vitality at St. Mary's because of that school. It took a lot of work up there in addition to regular parish activities, you know.
Mm-hmm. And I was there for a short time at St. Agnes, and then in the fall, the bishop transferred me immediately to Potsdam, St. Mary's in Potsdam. The reason for the transfer was that Father Al Salmon needed to go in a place where it was a higher elevation for his asthma and so forth. So the bishop asked if I would be willing to be transferred, and I said, sure. So I was sent to Potsdam, and there my main work was as a Newman chaplain for Clarkson students, Clarkson College students, and SUNY of Potsdam. In fact, I was there for 3 years.
So you were how old then? We're talking.
Oh, right around 30.
30,
31 by the time I got
I imagine the young people at college thought you were an old man then. If you remember, we thought anybody was 30 when we were, in our teens, we're old people. But you must have fit right in well with them there. You knew
I enjoyed it.
You knew their problems,
I
absolutely.
enjoyed it very, very much.
Now, I don't want to leave the rest of your family out here while you're at Potsdam, but At this point, there are more, now that second family has come to the Menards
Right.
at Thorne's Corners.
Right.
Now, who followed? You named 6 before, all right?
Yeah.
Teresa.
And then it would be Gloria, and then Kay, and then actually after Teresa would be Roland, and then Jane and Art, the youngest member of the family.
Uh-huh. So there were 13,
13.
all still living.
All still living. Mm-hmm.
And at one time, they had the dedication of, they had that yearbook history of Mooers Forks. They were the Catholic family, or they was named the Catholic Family of the Year, huh? By the bishop.
By the bishop.
Great honor, great picture in that book about the family, and so well respected. Your dad, you lost your dad in the past year.
In the past year, just a couple of months ago.
Uh-huh. Your mom is still
living, but in a nursing home. She's
Yes.
not well at all.
I had the pleasure, I dropped the tape off that you wanted, and I dropped it off, and I talked with your mom and dad at the time, and I enjoyed. I didn't know your mother was laid up like she was. Mm-hmm. She could hardly walk. Mm-hmm. And this is cordial as ever. Your dad had a great smile. This was a well-known in the area, did a lot for, just think of all the houses and homes he's worked on in this area, huh? Mm-hmm. If you could get a list of those sometime, how interesting. You never get it now.
Never
you have to do it while he's living, things like that. You had one sister, you said, that went on to be
and then the one of the sisters, I forgot to mention her, the last one of the family, not the youngest, but Sister Elizabeth, and she joined the Dominican Sisters of Fall River, and she went on to the University of Connecticut and got educated there, and her master's degree, BA, and then your master's degree, and so forth, and she got involved in catechetics and taught in the Catholic school for several years. And then she was the mother prioress, or the head of the Dominican order, for 6 years. And also instrumental in the past 5 years in trying to bring the smaller communities together. 2 other Dominican communities have formed one Dominican community now. And this is at Newburgh, is going to be their new headquarters. This was just done recently in the last month or so. And there are rumors I heard on the Emmaus program, or the Presbyteral program up at Lake Placid last week, that my sister might be going on. She's one that's going to be tagged to be the head one of the new order. Nice. She was so instrumental in building it up and getting the 3 orders together.
And we nearly forgot her there,
We almost forgot her.
And I'll tell you, I nearly forgot the camera. Things are going so well, Father, we forgot that camera. We better take a short break and give Calvin a break for a second.
Okay.
You're watching Hometown Cable. It's What's Going On Here, the name of our show every Sunday. Calvin and Bob trying to bring to you what's happening in the North Country. I do the talking, he does the picture taking. He's formerly known as a videographer. Is that what it's called, Calvin? That's what they call your nephew. Is it your nephew? Mm-hmm. Yeah, your nephew. Yes. He's called, and I'm referring to Paul Frederick, who has that program, a great program called People Near Here, along with Derek Muirden. It was played last night on Channel 57. And it was a great show last night on comic books. We'll be right back. I suppose you wonder if you would have known Father Menard when he was playing Gilbert Menard back in the 1930s. Well, this is he on screen right now. You were about what here? 10?
About 10.
About 10. About 1938. We're looking through a scrapbook that Father has either put together or your family put together for you. I don't know which.
Mom did.
Okay, we have to put these back in some kind of an order for you.
This right there.
Okay. And something that we should see? Because this mostly of the since you've been a priest is here.
Yes.
Okay.
But after. To get back, it's
yes.
There are no pictures here.
Okay.
But after my 3 years at Potsdam, I was assigned to Mooers Forks in 1958 with Monsignor Gilbert, who was very elderly. and needed help. And so I was there until 1965. But the main thing that came about, because I was young, not too many years ordained, I taught at St. Mary's for five or 6 years, right up until 1965.
So there was a dual purpose then for your coming to Mooers Fork.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Both Father Gilbert needed some real help and teaching.
And teaching.
But this has got to be, as far as I'm concerned, one of the toughest things a person could have to do. Come to his hometown to be a priest, and then teach in the school that you were at.
That I was at. But I was well received, both by the people of St. Anne's in Mooers Forks, and also especially by the people of St. Mary's in Champlain. And see, they used to have a high school then, as you know.
Oh, yes, they sure did.
And Rouse's Point students came in. We had students from Albert. We had quite a few students. It covered quite a few areas, and there were some boarders that were there too at the same time. But those were my really enjoyable years. And what I did while I was teaching at St. Mary's right off, in fact, let me see, I came in 1958. In 59, for 5 summers, I went over to St. Michael's College and got my master's degree in Latin and Greek studies. And then I was teaching Latin at St. Mary's in the morning, plus a religion class, Religion 3 at the time. And in the afternoon, for the last 3 years, before 65, I was teaching also Latin in the afternoon at Mooers Central School. And there too was a school that I had gone to and knew the professors and knew Paul Vaughan and knew Amos Musso and so forth. And I taught Latin there for 3 years.
And you
Latin 1, 2, and 3.
You taught many of your relatives too.
And taught a lot of my relatives. I taught my brother.
Yes.
Art, the youngest member
Yes.
of the family. And even though I was ordained and teaching in a public school, there was no problem after Dr. Harold, who was superintendent of schools at the time for the whole district, had it clarified with the legal department in Albany. And I'll never forget a little incident here. I was hired in September. What happened? The Latin professor decided not to go on teaching anymore. So they didn't have a professor.
That's at Mooers?
This was at Mooers. And so they asked if I would teach, and take over. And I said, sure, I'd be glad to. But they had to work it out with the district superintendent, Dr. Harold at the time, who was a very wonderful man. And he said, you go ahead and teach. We'll submit it to the legal department in Albany. And Amos Musso at the time said, he says, you won't have to worry, Father, for this year. He says, by the time the legal department gets an answer on this, he says, it'll be in May. And sure enough, it was May.
Was it, yeah.
It was May. Yeah. And the response was perfect, no problem. And as far as their knowledge that they knew, I was the first priest to teach with approval from the state in a public school.
Is that right?
Which I thought was very nice.
Now
And that was all through Dr. Harold, Dr.
Very much, yes.
Hogan, and Amos Musso.
You had some pretty prominent people in education that were behind you right there,
yes.
those 3 people.
Yes.
Now, someone out there is going to say, what did he do with his money? You got paid to public school. What did you do with the money?
Well,
is that yours, or does that belong?
no, that was mine.
That was yours?
Oh, yes.
That's where you got rich, right there? That's where you got rich. I didn't know if you could have money like that.
Yes, back then you could.
Because you sure didn't make much as a priest. What,
No,
$700 a month?
$70 a month.
$70 a month.
Yeah, that's what it was.
You were making that more than that in a week when you were teaching in '58, right? At Mooers.
Yes, it was more than that. It was way up. I mean, and
Yeah.
it would have been about $9,000 a year.
Wow! See, that's when your taxes started to go up right then, folks. When Father Gilbert Menard started teaching at Mooers Central. Of course, back then, Father, it was great. We had more little schools, and there were more activity for a lot more students. This, very quickly, is a '63 yearbook, and you can see here's Father Gilbert Menard and some of the sisters we had. The principal of secondary was Sister Anne Marie. What a gem of a person she was. And here's Father Repin. You all know him in Mooers. He's there now, and he'd been in Cooperville, and he was teaching, I guess, also. And Father Bernard Chrisman.
Yes, he was teaching.
Also teaching. So you had three of the, plus the religious sisters that were teaching. And at that time, in 63, I don't know how many in the class, but in Calvin, graduated in 64, and there were 42 or 43 in his class.
Yes.
So St. Mary's was a very well-known...
Oh, we were graduating upwards of 50 students a year.
You know, it was a big... of course, today it's just, it's a shadow itself. We have 6 grades, but you think of the high school, they had the... I don't know if they wore uniforms or not. The girls wore uniforms. And I think the boys wore ties probably a lot of the time in school, and it was one thing about a private school, they don't put up with very much like a public school. No. If you're gone. They don't have to worry about expelling you. You're gone. Then you can go to another school. So discipline was a little easier in that kind of a school, Like here is religion. There's Father Gilbert here. I think that's you right here.
Yes.
And Father Rapin. And here is a brother, I don't know which order he is from.
I don't know.
But there's very small pictures. We were kidding on the way up. Of course, there were so many, they had limited. Excellent printing job in this book.
There's Art Spiegel.
Where's Art Spiegel?
Right behind your hand.
Right up here?
No, down below. Down, right there. On top of
Oh,
your thumb.
yes. Yeah.
Right here?
No, up.
I can't even find him. It's Art Spiegel. Look at here.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, if you go to the libraries, as I know Champlain Library has 8 or 10 or 12 books there, you can go back and look through these old pictures, people that you knew. And I intend to bring some of these to our reunion this year, even though it's CCS and Old Champlain High School. These were friends of ours who went to the other school. It's just a very interesting... I see Calvin smiling right now as he looks at some of these pictures. And yourself, Father, great memories.
Yes, very, very much so.
It's like Norman Racine right here, talking with Father Repin.
It is.
He's a customs officer today, and one of the supervisors up there. And they went on to be some great people. I shouldn't say great, but they've gone on to make themselves known in the working world. At St. Mary's, we hated to lose St. Mary's, but it's a different world today, Father. Different world. The only Catholic elementary school in the northern tier.
Right.
North of Plattsburgh, I guess, and nothing else. Okay, so you were there from 58 to 65. What about confession? Did they try to disguise their voices when they came into confession to you?
No, there was no problem at all. Of course, Monsignor Gilbert, they always had a choice.
Yes.
He would hear confessions at the same time as I did. And back in those days, as you know, we always had an awful lot of confessions.
Yes, I know.
And then from Monsignor Gilbert died on the 6th of April, 1965. And then in June is when I was called up to teach at Wadhams Hall Seminary and College, where I had started. So it's interesting. I taught in Mooers, where I had gone to school, taught at St. Mary's, where I had gone to school, and now I'm teaching at Wadhams Hall, where I attended. And there my work was in Latin, Latin professor. Latin 1, 2, 3, and then I also did some graduate work with some graduate students on the graduate level for Latin.
So, go ahead, I'm sorry.
And then I was teaching French, 1, 2, and 3.
Wow.
And I got my degree in French, my master's degree, that is, from State University at Potsdam, where I had been a Newman chaplain several years before.
Yeah. So not only did Father Gilbert make an impression on you, and you were an altar boy, and you were in school, he helped to mold you when you became a priest, working with him for 7 years or so.
7 years, yeah.
Yeah, a big person in your life.
Yes.
He certainly has been. And I'm trying to... Wadhams Hall, that's a completely different situation there. When you're teaching in college after leaving high school, big change.
Big change.
Yes.
Not in high school back then, even in Mooers, In the public school, and definitely at St. Mary's, there were no disciplinary problems.
As my next question was going to ask you, you didn't have the problem.
No, they were not in existence in the public school nor the Catholic school back then. It worked out very, very well, and it wasn't just the classes I was teaching, but all the professors said the same thing. And you would vouch to that because we had excellent teachers in Mooers.
You know, I mentioned to Paul Vogan, and it certainly didn't mean it in any derogatory remark, I said you never should have become principal. He was a good principal, but he was so much better for me as a teacher. You can get principals, you can teach principals, you can't teach good teachers. That comes, he was, I quote again, the best teacher I've ever had, and you kind of lost that when he became a principal. He was disciplinarian too, and you didn't have trouble. He didn't have to force it.
No, you didn't have to.
And that's great.
Now the difference in college obviously is you don't teach every day of the week. You know, your courses would be like Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, or else Tuesday and Thursday schedules. You see various subjects, so you're not in the classroom all day because you're only allowed to teach so many hours.
But you still set a mass every day somewhere?
Yes, at the college, the whole community. And it's mostly the lecture system anyways in teaching in college, as you know, and the responsibility is totally on the students.
I think that's the biggest thing you notice when you go to college. They don't care whether you pass or not.
They have to learn. They have to learn, and they have to be able to walk and to run on their own. And we can't be behind them, pushing them and say, do this, do that. If you do it, you're fine. If you don't, you're out.
I don't think I was prepared for that in high school when I went to college later. I thought that they could have prepared me better for that adjustment. I'm not sure what the situation is today, but it's a big change.
Oh, it's a big change, as you know, because you don't have that many exams, you don't have quizzes that often, except in the 101 courses like Latin 101 and 102, and then your French 101 and 102 the first year. There you would have maybe a quiz a week at the most. But it's a completely different setup, and it's meant to put the responsibility upon the student. Because they have to learn on their own how to study and get good study habits.
Okay, let's take another short break. We'll be right back, and thank you for tuning in to Hometown Cable. Father Gilbert Menard is his name. The smile is the Menard smile taught by his mom and dad. I'm not sure we made it clear, Father, about this book. Your mother had got most of the information, but it was put together by someone else.
By my sister-in-law, Norma Menard. She's the one that put all
She's married to who?
Art.
Arthur.
He teaches over at Northeastern.
Okay.
Just to show one picture.
Don't forget that Norma is great in the musicals, too, at NCCS.
But this picture here, myself, Father Oler, and here is myself. I replaced Father Oler in 1971 at Hammond, New York, St. Peter's Church, and at St. Patrick's Church in Rossy. Two very, very small communities. There were 23 families in Rossy Catholic, and there were 57 families Catholic in Hammond. But I was also continuing my teaching at Wadhams Hall Seminary in college, but no longer in the administration part of the college.
25 years ago, he's telling us that he remembers how many people there were in his parish. You just heard that. Yeah. Now, you became a pastor then.
That was my first pastorate. And in college, as you know, we finish usually the first week of May, at the end of the first week. So I had the summer months. I'd take a week and visit every family, which would take about a couple days in the parish. And then something that might be interesting, anybody here that's farming, that's where the farming came back to me in a way. St. Peter's Church was right in the village, but also in the village there were two great big farms, and that's the way it was, very country. And I would raise 2 pigs a year, 25, 30 capons.
Is that right?
And a Black Angus bull every year.
We'll take a short break. We don't have a secretary here. For you people who don't remember, this is what telephones used to look like right here. This is a relic, believe me. They were all black, right? And you dialed. You didn't have the things we have today, all right? And of course, this is when you talk long on the phone, you put that on your shoulder.
Yeah,
see? And that's for we had one of those in my office. But this is the phone as it was. There aren't many left of these in the, at least in the Champlain Telephone District, as they used to. All right, we're back again now. You were talking about your pigs and your capons and your farming.
And a black Angus.
And your black Angus.
And I would butcher everything myself with the help of the janitor, the 2 pigs, and in the fall, late fall, donate the meat to Wadham's Hall Seminary.
Is that right?
And the capons, the same thing, donate all the meat to Wadham's Hall. The black Angus, I would have it slaughtered over at Morristown and at a slaughterhouse there.
Uh-huh.
And that was donated to the seminary.
I thought maybe you were telling me because of the small parishes you had to raise your own food in order to have enough food.
No, it was exercise.
It was exercise. Father, becoming a pastor for the first time has got to be a big point in a priest's life. That's a big change, right?
Yes, it is.
You're the boss,
Yes,
so to speak.
You're the boss. Mm-hmm.
Until that time, you're at the women call of the pastor.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And at that time, when you were doing, you didn't have much choice of where you were going to go, did you?
No, well, I could have opted out, but that's when we began to get a shortage of priests, and so the bishop asked for a volunteer from one of the professors at Wadham's Hall if he would like to go and take the parishes of Rossi and Hammond, and but still teach. And I offered, and I accepted.
So you lived in the rectory at?
I lived at the rectory from then on.
How far is that from
It
Ogdensburg?
was 20 miles.
20 miles.
One way.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
All right. So then you were how long at
Right up
Ogdensburg?
until at Ogdensburg from 65 until 78 at the seminary, and from 71 until 78 at Hammond and Rossi.
7 years there, yes.
And then in 1978 I was transferred over to St. Alexander's at Morrisonville, New York. And there we have 8, 9 grades, K through 9, Catholic school. It was a big school. A big brand new church that Father Taylor had constructed and built.
Uh-huh.
And a big convent with, back then we had seven sisters that were still teaching in our Catholic school. And I was there from 78 until 83. And then I came here.
That was the same order as St. Mary's,
It
It is.
Same
Same order. Sisters of the Charity of the Sacred Heart. And Sister Elaine, who was our principal's sister, was also at Morrisonville.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Is she still there as far as you know?
I think she is.
Still there, huh?
Yes.
How many do they have left at Morrisonville for sisters? Do you know what?
I don't think too many, maybe 2 at the
Uh-huh.
most. Possibly 3.
Father Grotto is at Morrisonville now?
Is the new pastor.
Yeah, I don't know him very well. He was at our bazaar this past weekend, and we saw him under the auction tent with Father Gardner and Father Sarank and Father Morgan were there, reminiscing. They like to patronize each other's churches' activities, and we hope that this is too late now. While you're watching this Sunday, don't forget St. Anne's are having theirs, and we hope you're watching this late in the evening, or you will get over there and have that great dinner at St. Anne's, which is today, June the 3rd, that you're watching this. You'll be going to St. Anne's probably, at least to
Yes.
make yourself know,
Yes.
right back in your home area.
Mm-hmm.
All right. You were how long, you say, at Morrisonville?
5 years, and mostly I taught at St. Alexander's, one of the religion classes, in the 7th or 8th grade. And then the big thing was to remodel and bring the school up to date. We had an awful problem with the roof on the building, and so what we did was put the new slanting roof on the gym and on the entire building. And then we excavated along the side of the building to drain the water away from the school building completely, because it's built on a side hill. All done with voluntary work. and labor under Mr. Duquette and Mr. Sweenor, who were great men, great construction men, Donald Duquette and Al Sweenor, and they're the ones that organized, along with Jim Gorman, and mostly done by and sponsored by the Knights of Columbus of Morrisonville. They're the ones that spearheaded the whole thing.
You've been
But
a
it was a big savings.
you've been a Knights Clubist for many years.
Oh, ever since I joined in Champlain.
Uh-huh. And Mooers has their own consul now, and up here, Ellenberg has their own consul too. Yes. You came here next after
I came here in 1983, and I have been here ever since.
Did you have a choice coming here?
Yes, I did.
There was a vacancy. Today
There was
there's a
a
vacancy,
vacancy.
and they kind of announce it to the priest, and the priest can say yes.
Or you can say no. Yeah.
More will probably apply here than they would at Champlain. Champlain is not an easy parish. You need someone young there because that school is a lot of work. And Father Morgan, who had been only 2 years at West Shazy, and I tell him he had it made there. He had a great, everything was done. He had a new roof put on. Everything was done, so to speak. And after 2 years, they asked him to come to Champlain. He said, "Wherever you want me," and he's there.
Yep.
And we're very happy with him.
Oh yes.
And just great for our community, and it's a loss from for West Shazy. But on the other hand, Father Demars from Ellenberg, right,
From Ellenberg.
is now at West Shazy. So it seems like we know these nearly our friends and neighbors who are becoming our priests.
And the reason I came here and opted for here, it brought me a lot closer to home.
Your mom and dad getting along in age,
On
and certainly,
age,
yes,
and so it was right near next door.
right. And today, Roland is in Malone.
Roland is in Malone at St. John Bosco Parish and doing well. Loves it.
He's associate there, is he pastor?
No, he's pastor.
He's pastor now, okay. So he moved from one to the other.
From St. John, from Notre Dame.
Notre Dame, when I
as
last
an
saw him, he was
associate,
there.
yeah, as
Okay,
an
then he's
associate.
down
And now as a pastor at
St. John's Bosco.
St.
That's
John
where
Bosco.
Father Rivette had been, huh?
That's where Father Rivette had been.
Okay, that's the poor, as they say, the less
there.
money there.
Yes,
That
yes.
that was he built that. He, as Father Rivette used to say, he builded that church there. He built that. And, had a lot of work there, and that's where Father Snow was too. So great camaraderie between priests, Father.
Very much so. Very much so. Very, very close, and we enjoy each other's company, and we try to meet as often as we can.
Do you all cry to each other about the same things happening in
Pretty
your
much,
parish?
pretty much.
You had a big
Yep.
meeting this past week with the bishop up in Lake Placid.
Yes.
That was a whole week for you. You had been there for a short time
Short time.
at that parish, and all the priests were there.
I would say practically everybody.
All invited anyway.
All invited, and 136 were present.
Uh-huh.
So there might have been 15, 20 missing, that couldn't get out.
And you stayed there, or did you come home?
We stayed there
Uh-huh.
for several days.
Where did you have your meeting?
At the, not the Holiday Inn, the Howard Johnson.
Uh-huh. You break up in smaller groups, or is it just one big?
We start out with a big group, and then we would break up into smaller groups for discussions and so
Uh-huh.
forth, and then meet again into the larger group and
Uh-huh.
summarize what went on in the
Okay.
smaller groups, which is a good way of
Yeah.
discussions.
In general, too, you still make retreats
Still make retreats
every year?
every year, yes.
Where do you go for yours?
Wadham's Hall Seminary. Go back
Explain
to
to
seminary.
people who may not know. What's a retreat? What do you do?
Retreat is a time where you can relax, and a time where you can pray, a time when you listen to another priest, usually a religious order man, that comes in and gives us special talks on the priesthood and our obligations and duties and so forth. And then a time to meet. We have certain recreational time, and so forth, so that we can meet and talk. It's very, very inspiring and very spiritual.
Having spent 8 years with Father Snow in
The seminary.
the seminary and then on theology, have you been close with him over the years as a priest?
Yes, we have always remained close.
Have you seen him very often now that he's in Florida?
Not so much now that he's in Florida, but we write to each other usually, quite often.
Is his health pretty good?
His health is holding on. Yes. he would not be able to handle responsibilities of a parish.
Uh-huh.
That was his
Uh-huh.
big problem, was
Yeah.
handling everything. But as long as he's not in the driver's seat, he's
Uh-huh.
fine.
He was
Working
the-
for somebody else, he's excellent.
He was the first pastor at Cumberland Head, wasn't
Cumberland
he?
Head.
St. Mary's on the lake.
Yeah.
Please remember us, Calvin and I, both the Father. You remember Father Snow very well. Remember us to him, and you write to him again.
I certainly
Tell
will.
me we're asking about him, and we read about him recently here in the North Country Catholic. We'll be right back. We'll just see what we want to cover for the remainder of this program, and we'll recap and so forth. And Calvin's got a ball game to go on to, and we'll cover some other things here with Father. And thank you very much again for watching Hometown Cable every day.
Not just a ball game, a Northern Adirondack ball game.
Oh,
A
boy.
Northern Adirondack ball game. I hope
Okay.
not here in Northern Adirondack. Because you got to bring me home. I got to go home. I got other things to do. Where are you going for that game, Calvin?
Saranac.
To Saranac, New York, Northern Adirondack ball game. So watch for that coming up. I can't say soon, but here on Hometown Cable, it's every day something. 15 hours plus every day. Hometown Cable is coming to you 5 times the same program, and we don't expect you to watch them all, but we expect you at least to find out what's on and pick out the ones you like and see your friends and neighbors. One of your best neighbors you can have is Calvin, Castine, and Sam. They do a lot of work for you people out there. Show your appreciation. Become a patron. Be one of those. Raise that 9 or 10% up to 15 or 20% of those who participate and show their faith in Hometown Cable. Person that meant so much to at least 4 or 5 in your family, Father Gilbert.
Gilbert.
First name?
Arthur.
Arthur Gilbert. Was that 35 years or 40? 45 years the pastor at Mooers Forks, and has been passed away now for 20 years.
Since 30 years, 1965.
1965, right here. His picture, and it wasn't down here. He got it up in his room. I'm sure that meant an awful lot to you, very, very much over the years.
Mhm.
And you were talking to us that not only are you the pastor here, but Churubusco. Tell us about Churubusco.
When I came to Ellenburg back in '83 at St. Edmund's Church, I was also asked to take on the Immaculate Heart of Mary Church at Churubusco because their pastor was retiring. He was up in age, and they no longer had a priest available to replace Father Shu, who was at Churubusco. And I served there for 10 happy years. A very nice community, very close-knit community, and very friendly to each other and so forth. Now, at the present time, Father McCaslin, who retired from St. Anne's Church in Mooers Forks, opted to be administrator at Immaculate Heart of Mary Church at Churubusco. Now, the way this comes about, when a priest retires, he has many options. He can just retire in a home somewhere, his own house or his own mobile home, or he can retire with another priest and help out a little bit, or you can retire, if you're healthy enough, in a parish that is not too large, usually under 200 families is what the bishop mentions, and there be administrator or help out in that parish. And so Father McCaslin at the present time is the total administrator of that parish, and doing very well because, as you know, he's a very active man.
It sure is. So administrator means you're just, what's the difference between an administrator and a pastor? Basically, they're doing the same things.
Doing exactly the same thing, except a pastor has a stronger roots in canon law. In other words, you can't easily displace a pastor in a parish,
Okay.
whereas an administrator can be replaced immediately. Ill health or something, if he feels the bishop can change him at any time.
Okay. Now, is Father Rep administrator at Mooers?
No, he is just simply retired there.
He's retired, but he's there and he's doing.
And he helps out. He
Okay.
does a lot of help, but Father Sarank is still the pastor and heads Mooers as well as most for.
Now, when you were the administrator at Churubusco, did you use
I
the
was the
residence?
pastor. I was
I'm
the
sorry, the pastor. Did you use the residence there?
No, I didn't because I remained here. But the residence was used by our janitor. He was an elderly man, Mr. Martin Doyle, and he resided at the rectory after his wife died, and which was a year after I came here practically. And so he stayed at the rectory, watched the building, watched the church, and took care of the grounds and everything else.
Now, when you were a pastor, did you go there a certain number of hours a week to be available at the rectory that they knew about or anything like that?
It would be mostly by phone from here, and a mass on Saturday at 7:30, a mass on Sunday at 9:30, and then Tuesdays and Thursdays I would celebrate a mass at 9 o'clock over at Churubusco besides the one here. And there, people knew, so that's when if there were any problems, they would come and see me after church, and we would go to the rectory and work out problems and so forth. But they had an active altar rosary society there too, and we would have our regular meetings. And they have an active adult club, and I would attend all their meetings also. So I mean, any special meetings or meetings of the parish council board and so forth, we always had our regular meetings.
Having be the pastor of two parishes has been the exception rather than the rule over the
Very
few
much
years.
so.
But that's going to change.
That's going to change. Very much
Got
so.
any feelings that you might want to express to us about what you think is going to happen with churches and pastors and so forth?
It's hard to say, but one thing I think we're going to be seeing even a greater shortage of priests. You take like another 10 years or 12 years, it's going to make a lot of difference on older priests like myself, who will definitely be retired by then, long retired. And we do not have the large numbers coming in to replace the older priests, as Bishop Paul Laverde mentioned at our confirmation class a few weeks ago.
Is there a mandatory retirement age for you? It's 75? It is 75?
And you can retire at 70.
But after 75, you won't be a pastor anymore generally?
No, you could be administrator or else most of them retire completely. But Father McCaslin is one of the exceptions, and he's still very healthy and very much on the go, and does a tremendous job with the elderly.
Yes. He called the rectory the other day, wanted to know about our hours. He was going to put it in the bulletin, and he said he was going to be down St. Anne's this coming Sunday, the day you're watching this. We'll see him there, seeing his old friends and so forth. Also in the North Country Catholic this past week, I saw the bishop's picture. I guess he talked to the graduating class at the Mater D?
Yes.
And one of the things he says is that when he left, he said that things will get along without him being here. And he said that he sees that's exactly what has happened. They're getting along very well without him, although he's been here. How many bishops did you serve under?
7.
Come on. Out of 10. We've only had 10 or 11. This is the 11th one now?
Yes.
And you served under 7 in 40 years.
Because we had a big changeover of bishops there.
There was one only lasted 6 months. Maybe he passed away.
Yeah.
Smith?
You see, McIntaggart was here for only a short time and was promoted to a bigger job. Kellenberg was promoted to a bigger job after just a few years. And then Nava was here for a few years, and then he was promoted. And then Smith died.
Very quickly.
And then Bishop Berjana was here for the longest, 25 years.
Yes, 25.
And now under Paul Laverde now, see, 7. But each bishop, I feel, gave something to the diocese that just one man could never have been able to give, and I'm sure you could vouch for that.
I'm sure.
Even like Bishop Nava, being the big construction man, as he
Yes.
was called.
Yes.
You remember that?
Oh, yeah, the jokes that came out with him, yes. But, now, like here
But
at
they
Ellenberg.
all offered something, and it enriched our diocese.
Yes. Here at Ellenberg, we'll take this maybe another break here before we're done, but you have a Knights of Columbus.
Very active Knights of Columbus, very active Catholic Daughters of the America, Americas, number 1300, and KFC 4441, a very active altar rosary, a good active youth ministry program, senior citizens, and there's also the Pioneer Club. That's functioning very well.
You have a parish council?
We have that.
How big?
No, not big.
How many members on your?
We only have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
6, huh?
Yeah, with the two trustees.
That includes the trustees?
Yes, it would include.
So that's 4?
4 into it. That's all you need.
That leaves it wide open for a tie vote. Now what do you do? You're, well, I understand that they're only recommending to you anyway.
Yeah.
And I think Bishop Laverty's even more so than other bishops say that
Right.
you are in charge. The parish council doesn't run the parish, but you do take their advice. Of course,
yes, we have to.
If you
And we
decide
should.
to
We
do
should.
what they want, it's still your decision, not theirs. Which is certainly.
But very seldom do we go against a wise decision of a council.
Well, I would
You
think
know,
that
I
it
mean,
would behoove you,
because, it's our parish,
Yep.
it's their parish,
Yes.
and they're very interested in improving the parish. And
Yep.
so usually for here, it's in the area of improvement is always along religious education lines, as you would know,
Yep.
and along spiritual lines and liturgy. That's pretty much because we don't have any new buildings.
No. I'm,
anything like that.
Yeah, I'm very outspoken when it comes to that I don't think a priest should come into a parish and say, we're going to cut all the trees in the yard. Because when he leaves, those trees are still gone. You've got to have to get the feeling of the people, I think, a little bit.
Yes.
That when he's gone, it's still our parish. And we'll take another short break and come right back. Thanks again for tuning in. I keep telling you that because I really do appreciate your comments, and so does Calvin. And the more people watch Hometown Cable, the better it is for yourself, first of all, to know what's going on in our area, and for all those people who are part of the program, not only like ours, but the ball players like to see their parents, their relatives, their friends see them play ball. Even if they don't win all the games, they don't have to win them all. They're just having a lot of fun. Father, have you been instrumental that you know of in any priests that have been ordained?
Yes, two. The Decker boys, Doug Decker and Bob Decker. That's when I was
Where are
over
they
in
from?
Hammond,
In
New York.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
And,
Sisters in the other orders, brothers, anybody that you know of?
No.
You certainly have influenced a lot of people with your teaching, and things. We mentioned other parishes. Do you see any other parishes when they lose their priest, maybe not getting a new priest, joined in with another parish like they did over in Constable, Trout River, and so forth?
This is
Got to come.
It's got to come. The clustering of more and more parishes, with one priest, but then the laity, the Catholic community, will have to come together more and take over administrative work, and the priest would be more on the sacramental level.
Well,
this is coming.
with cars, two in the family with cars, you don't need to have a parish every 5 miles away. It just isn't necessary anymore. You just don't need that.
See, the problem we face in our diocese that the bishop was mentioning last week at the presbyteral meeting is, as you know, in the mountains. We have so many mountains, and you get one little parish, but it's so far away, 50, 60 miles away from the next parish.
Yes.
Like Blue Mountain Lake,
Yes, that's
and
the
Indian
problem,
Lake,
yeah.
and all those areas. So you have to, even though they're small parishes, you cannot cluster them, and you still have to have a priest there.
Yeah.
See, that's one of the problems we face. I mean, we can't distribute the priests
And then,
so
of course,
much to the bigger parishes.
Some of the parishes, the population rise so much in the summer.
Yeah.
Lake Placid must have went up quite a bit in the summer.
Right, yes, it did. Oh, yes.
Now, your mass is at what hours here?
Over here at 4 o'clock on Saturday, and then 8 and 11 on Sunday.
Okay.
We keep it open so that this way, so that if anything, if Father wants to take a Sunday off in Chertobusco, then I can cover the 7:30
Okay.
in Chertobusco on Saturday and 9:30 on Sunday morning.
Okay. In passing, I'd like to also make note and thank the North Countrymen. I don't know if you people have noticed, but that yellow outside wrapper of the North Countrymen is called the banana cover or something. On the inside back page, it lists the masses for most of the churches in the area, Catholic as well as the non-Catholic churches, and you pay attention to that. That's where I found out about Mooers' masses and Mooers Park a couple of weeks ago when I attended there. So they're there to cut that out and put it aside. If you have those questions, they'll be right there. Not only your own parish, but the others in your immediate area. Nice to have. Father, we thank you very much.
Yes, and in
for sitting with us.
conclusion, I want to mention too that we do have a very active religious education program under the leadership of Betty Bulris and Marie Tremblay, Sam's wife, and also a good choir under the leadership of Barb Bilo, and the grounds and caring for the grounds is under our janitor Leo Lashway. And I want to thank you all for this interview.
You're very welcome. Anybody else that your housekeeper, who's your housekeeper?
Shirley Riel
Uh-huh.
has been the housekeeper here for 12 years, and she helped out when we were over in Mornisonville also.
Sounds like a Marshallville name, the Riel. There's
Yes.
more than her there, obviously. Now you have, I didn't mention that, I should, you have the big building next door. What did you have? You never had a school there, did you?
No, no.
Your
But
community center there.
The public school is nearby, NAC, and so
Yes, but what do you use this big building for next door?
religious ed program.
Oh, you have numerous rooms in
We
there.
have a lot of room, but you have to remember with the clustering of schools, Altona comes in here now, and then also Line Mountain,
Uh-huh.
also Immaculate Heart of Mary and Cherto Busco, and our own parish. So
Uh-huh.
we need all the space.
Okay. Now your Knights of Columbus meet there too, do they?
No, they have their own
They have their own building.
building.
Catholic Daughters meet
They
over
meet
there.
over here, and they altar rosary.
And you had a dinner there the other night for the KSCs, I
Right.
noticed. That was up
Yeah.
here
Yeah,
close by.
that's- yeah. Mhm.
All right. Now, behind there's the state police. Are they on your property?
No, they bought that.
In
several
behind,
years ago.
huh?
It used to be our building. That used to be the old convent
Okay.
for the Dominican sisters.
There's no sisters here at all now?
No.
So you teach all the religious ed, or do you have
We have all
teachers?
kinds of lay teachers,
Uh-huh.
volunteer lay
Can
teachers.
you name them offhand?
No.
No.
And,
No.
I could name quite a few. There's Colleen Sheehan, Liz Barcombe, Carol Barton, and Marguerite Forat. Oh my goodness! And we have several others. Mona LeBombard, and I can't think of any. I should have written them by hand, but we still have a few others.
Okay.
Donna Primo used to teach, and Evelyn Bouye used to teach. Anna Hanshoe, she teaches and helps out, and Carol, not Carol, but Donna Curry is one of our teachers, and Silver, Eunice Silver, and then Marie Kaye. And if I forgot anybody, I'll say like Bishop Rajana, double thanks for helping out. Oh.
You know, he remembered how many people were in the parish back there in Hammond. What was it? That shoe name you said was what? Hanshoe?
Hanshoe.
Now, was that the same name as the priest that was in Cherbusco before?
No, that was Father Shue.
Father Shue. Okay.
S-H-U-E.
I knew that. All right. So we've been talking with Father Gilbert Menard. He's like Father McCaslin, well known in the area, throughout our area. The only parish that he's, except for Augsburg and Hammond, everything's been over here in Clinton County area,
Clinton
hasn't
County
it?
area.
And he's an old man. No matter what you may think about, he's an old man here. See, he's the same age as me, and 40 years a priest. And we thank you very much for those 40 years, Father. Because of people like you, our religion continues, and our youngsters, although we don't have as many go to church as we used to. I don't know how you will. Maybe there's a circle. And it's like it'll
yes.
come back. I guess things run in circles. And we wish you to continued health, and your family, and that the big Menard family made a lot of impressions in the area. And thank you for the people of Ellenburg for what you do to Hometown Cable, and for treating me so nice when I see you, and I know you see Calvin, And you don't see Calvin as often on TV as you do me, but he's there. He's behind that camera. Everything you see is either Sam or Calvin is behind it. He's seeing it with one eye closed through the lens. And show your thanks to him by becoming a patron. And when you see him, tell him how much you enjoy the programs. He'll be glad to hear that. It's always nice to know that you like it, whether we did a good job or not, whether you like it. If you don't like it, tell us what we could have done to make it better. And I don't know what we could have asked Father. We've covered everything, I guess, Father.
We've covered pretty much everything.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, good night, everybody. We'll see you next Sunday here on Hometown Cable. We're still looking for veterans to talk about the war in Europe. We were talking a little bit off camera, the amount of time that from the time they decided or had their calling till they became a priest. You were 15 when you went in, and you became a priest ordained when?
That is in 66.
But you were 30 years old?
30 years.
30 years old at the time. And Father, you said much less.
Yes, I went in at 22, and I already had a degree, and then I was ordained in, believe it or not, in 53, which I left in 48, so that was only 5 years later I was ordained.
Okay, now you were mentioning your pet or your mission is family life.
Yeah.
And yet you're running an orphanage, which is part of family life. How do you?
Well, taking the children as young as I can, meaning sometimes they're babies, 1 year old, 3 years old, I try to teach them how the Lord wants us to live out family life and avoid all these other problems that we have in society. Because if you think about it, it's the way we are brought up that determines the way we live later on, especially our moral principles. So when we talk about bad government, usually you can trace it back to bad family life. When you have a poor school system, usually you trace it back to family life. Everything has its roots in family life. Right? And because I studied psychology, sociology, and so on, it's also important to know that the time of pregnancy is very crucial. Right? If a mother has a very unhappy pregnancy, meaning she's always fighting with her guy, well, the chances are the baby will be better prepared for the boxing ring than for a peaceful life. That's how crucial that the prenatal time is. And then the early years are very, very crucial, so that when a child is brought up without a married father and mother, and when the child is not taught the moral principles that a good couple would give their children, then that child is probably going to be a problem to society. Even though that child could be a millionaire later on, still the child will be selfish. It won't understand what it means to be self-sacrificing. The symbol of our faith is the cross, Jesus on the cross. The whole idea of penance and self-sacrifice, self-denial is usually lost. And selfishness becomes so much part of the human being that no matter what profession that person goes into, they are selfish persons and they harm society instead of building up society. So this is you might say, the core of the message that the children receive back where I am in St. Anthony's Children's Home. That doesn't mean I'm going to be successful, because all the outside is against them. They go to school and they hear the opposite. They have friends outside, they hear the opposite. And then they look at TV and they see the opposite. They listen to the radio, they hear the opposite. So it's very hard to work that way.
And the opposite's more fun.
Of course.
Right.
As they say, sin is enjoyable.
Yes.
And penance is not enjoyable. So that's the same trouble our Lord had, but he didn't make out too well either. He ended up on the cross.
Yes.
So the whole idea of the Christian life then is kind of far into our modern generation. And our work then, we're constantly fighting the principles that belong to Satan and evil, see? So we'll always have failures. and that's the hardest part of our work. That's why we have to spend so much time in prayer. And
Right. How does what he's saying relate to your? You figure your job is in Uganda.
Quite
You're talking same language there, huh?
Right, yes.
But he has his few people at the orphanage from 1 year old. You don't get them until they get much older.
Yes, I have many children who have no education, who have not had a chance of getting education. First of all, those who are in primary schools have not been instructed in religion. So we work in a team of about 15 trained catechists whom we would like to help, for example, coming from this area to go to schools in there, but we lack means of transport. We think if we get small motorcycles, very small motorcycles could help those catechists spread the word of God through the schools, through the program for religious education. And then with this program of AIDS, we will use also teams. We'd like to have people who are trained for that to go and talk to people in their localities, but we lack means of transport also. If we have a car, for example, that would help people to go and reach different groups and talk to them about.
Do you find that the people that you have reached, those 35,000, do you think that they are more moral than the ones you haven't reached?
Yes.
You've noticed a big difference?
The problems are more in the areas that are more distant from us than these ones near us.
Are they still having as big a families as they had, say, like, are there a lot of families with over 10 children?
Not now.
Not now, huh?
The movie is now getting fewer children.
that's not because of morals, right?
No, that's because of birth
Finances.
control, huh?
No,
Yeah.
finances.
Finances, oh, okay.
Right in Jamaica, a woman might have had 5, 6, 7, 8 children in the past. The first one presents a financial problem.
Yeah.
It's very hard to live in Jamaica.
But your father didn't have it easy either with 19 children, your father and mother. That had to be pretty...
That was tough.
I mean, I don't know where you could get a job and raise 19 children.
Family, yes. When from the land, he was able to.
Are most of your brothers and sisters, the other 18, still living?
Yes, except one.
Except one. But even with all of the hard... You've had that could be a hard life in Uganda.
Yes,
And yet they're still living.
Yes, we are all still living except one. Yes, one died.
They all in pretty good health too? Or
Most of them, yes.
your mother and father still living?
They are dead.
They're dead.
The father is dead. The mother is dead.
Uh-huh.
The father is dead in 87. Died in 87.
You realize that people watching have no idea of the life in Uganda and in Jamaica either, although we hear a lot about Jamaica, but we always see them dancing and the things you have for vacation, but we don't understand, And how many do you have in your orphanage, Father?
I'm not allowed to have more than 50.
50.
So it's usually at 50.
Right, at 50. And you have no trouble in finding someone to replace somebody who leaves. There's a lot of never, no problem. Yeah.
My problem is to have one of the house mothers accept another one.
How many employees do you have, like house mothers and others? How many?
I have 15.
15 people working.
Yes.
Yeah. It's a full-time job, isn't it?
Full time. Yeah. See, we try to support ourselves. We have some businesses. We sell fish and lobster. We buy the fish and lobster at the beach, and we sell fish and lobster. The children do all the gutting and the scaling. We have a green onion business where the children strip the dry parts from the green onions and they cut them up with a knife. And then we sell 400 pounds a week to a beef patty company. And that helps us also. And then we make our own syrup and we sell it in the supermarkets. And all of that is to help the children to have ambition and to have what it means to be able to help to support themselves. All of these things help, while you might say the whole of the society is kind of negative in bringing them up. We give them all these positive efforts. Still, it's not easy. You know,
Uh-huh.
as we said before, it's kind of easier to follow
Oh, yes.
the evil
Yes,
way
yes.
than it is the good way.
Yeah. Now, in Uganda, does the Catholic Church have any orphanages? The church
Yes,
itself?
yes,
You
yes,
do
yes,
have?
we have.
In your area?
Not in our
No.
area, but in the archdiocese as such, we have 2 of them.
Are there more than one diocese in Uganda? Yes,
We
sir.
have 16 dioceses.
16?
Catholic, yes, 16 Catholic.
And how many in Jamaica, did you say?
Diocese, 2, and then the vicariate. Yeah.
Vicaria? I'm not
Yeah.
familiar.
Well, it's not a full diocese. It has a bishop, but like he has no more than 5 or 6 priests.
Okay. We're talking the similarities and the differences between these 2 gentlemen and where their life work is and where they're very dedicated. And we're going to come back and just talk a little bit about this trip. Obviously, they like to come here to Champlain, New York, read the bombardment, the mission center here, and they're out there now. There's 3 or 4 people out there sorting and packing clothes that they send,
Yeah.
and they send new clothes also. No, they don't send. You're looking for money. You want money and prayers and prayers.
Oh, he may get a shipment too.
He may get-
He's working on that.
He's working on it. The problem, of course, is getting it to Uganda. It costs a lot of money to get the shipment to Uganda. We'll be right back. We ramble on because anything that either one says is very interesting to me, and I hope to you out there. Your primary reason for being in Champlain this morning. Let's start with you, Father. Your primary reason to be in Champlain was
Is to visit friends, make new friends, and those friends have helped me in the past, and I hope they will help me in the future to build up this new parish where we need so
Now,
many.
where does your money come from to run your parish? Generally, is the money people can't afford to give too much, can
No,
they?
they don't. They don't. So mostly we have relied on help received from here.
Do you get help from the Catholic Church in the United States? The church as the larger body for the church, any of the drives they have here, to raise money. Does the Catholic Church give you any money from the United States?
Except through these visits.
But not directly say, we're going to give so much to Uganda. They don't do that. Okay. So when we give to the mission, they aren't giving to Uganda Catholic priests.
They
Well,
do.
Peter's Pence, I think.
Huh?
Doesn't Peter's Pence go to Rome and then Rome?
And that's
In Rome,
yes,
dispenses, okay.
yes, yes.
And, all right, and your primary reason is to visit friends also, but something is sent from here to your parish.
Oh,
correct?
regularly.
Yes. And what do you get from the mission center? Clothes?
Everything. Even knives and forks, Calvin.
Yes.
He was suggesting that maybe we lift them out of the drawers.
And now he's going to tell you that he does get knives and forks.
And we get, things like irons, bicycles, you name it.
Uh-huh.
We get everything.
Now, because-
Even furniture.
Because you're taking care of people there at that orphanage, do you get anything from the government at all?
No, because my home is a unique home. Right? Remember, I spent 7.5 years in Dannemora in the prison. And while I was there, the prisoners told me how they disliked priests, sisters, brothers in the orphanages where they had spent their early youth. See? And I found out that the main reason was that some of the priests, brothers, nuns tried to be fathers and mothers to these young boys. And as soon as they got close to the children, their superiors moved them out. See? Actually, I say it was a false kind of Christianity where they didn't want you to get attached to the children. See? And I say that's not the way it should be. We're supposed to be attached to the children. If we love God, we have to love the children totally, So I said, when I opened up this children's home back in '74, that I would be their father to start with, and then I would look for other people to father and mother them, see? So that they would always feel that St. Anthony's home was their home. And the children that graduate and they leave, they come back as if it was their home. They stay overnight and so on. If they have children, they come with their children.
You're visiting their
That's
home.
the whole idea, that they would have what every child needs: a loving parents, and the security that comes from that kind of a home, say, where they receive real love. And my children show this security in their behavior after they're graduated. People remark and say, what a nice person that is.
Father McCass, what is a typical day for you in Uganda as a priest? What is a typical day? You get up at 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock?
Usually we get up at 6:30
Yes.
in the morning, say our private prayers, and then start Mass at 7 o'clock up to 7:30.
How many people would you get at that Mass?
About 25
Okay.
every morning.
Okay.
Average, yes. And then start office work at 8:30.
What is office? What do you do as office work? What are you doing?
I expect people to come, for example, for preparing their children for baptism, to look for tickets for their baptism, to ask for help here and there, whether they need Mass in their locality, or they need a catechist to go and prepare a group of adults who are preparing for baptism. Such are the ordinary types of activities.
Okay. Now, are there any cars in your area? Many cars? Your parishioners don't own cars. How do they get to you?
Some will walk.
Yes.
Others have bicycles, then they will use bicycles. Bicycle is the most common means of transport. And that's why we are trying to get catechists to get bicycles,
Right.
move around their outstations. And then for a group of catechists who teach religion, we need small motorcycles so that two people can go to a distant outstation.
Do people come to you and say, we have no food, could you help us?
Not
They don't do that.
They don't.
Do they ask for money?
Money they would.
They do ask for
Some
money?
family may not have any money to educate a child. They would come to a priest to ask, but
Do you have any money for
No,
them?
I don't.
You don't have any money for them. I know locally in Champlain, a lot of people stop at the parish and ask for money. They're traveling, and they say the best place to stop and get a little bit of money for food is the local priest won't turn you down. And they do it on a general basis, So how big is your church? You have a church?
Not yet.
Not yet.
We have only the former outstation chapel.
Okay.
We have not built a church yet.
Now, when you don't have enough money, how are you going to build a church? God will provide, I guess, but are there any churches in the whole diocese?
Yes, in the diocese we have churches.
I don't mean diocese, your parish.
No.
None in the
We
parish.
have only small chapels.
Okay.
Yes. But we intend to build a church for the whole parish.
Well,
Yes,
let me ask you something that many of us have, Calvin and I. Do you ever get discouraged?
Not really. I have
You don't get discouraged? No?
No.
I do.
You do. You do, huh? What makes you discouraged, for
I
instance?
think probably I'm like most parents. You wish the children would be
Oh, yes.
humble enough to accept all the teachings you give them, and that they would live up to your expectations. And the children are always falling below that. So I would identify with most parents.
Okay.
that
I was
they're
going to say,
discouraged.
you don't have to be in Jamaica or Uganda for that. When you were growing up, I'm sure your parents had feelings that you weren't doing what they would like you to do all the time, too. We all do that. No matter how good you were, we'd like to have you a little better. I think that's natural,
Right. Except that we live in a harder time. See? In other words, trying to teach Christianity in our day and age to our children is a lot harder today than it was before.
Well, you mentioned all the things, the other people are living, the movies, the TVs, all those. Now, you don't have the TV problem at all. You don't have that as a problem.
In the parish, no, we don't.
No, you don't have that.
Him last night, I know of 2 families that have a TV and they're using a battery. They use a battery.
Where do they pick up? Where do they pick up the picture from?
From Kampala, the headquarters,
Yeah.
from the headquarters, which
Okay.
is about 60 or 50 miles away.
Do you use video at all to the people to show them pictures when you have meetings? Do you have?
Some people do that. For example, a diocesan team, if we invited a diocesan team, they could do that to our people.
Yes.
They could show pictures.
I would think that would be impressive when they haven't seen pictures and you see it for the first time. You're going to pay a lot of attention. Now, whether they do what you want them to afterwards, another thing. Huh?
Yeah. Well, I say television is a tremendous modern invention, and the videos and so on. And as church, we should use it to the maximum effect, right? But the other side, meaning Satan and all his crowd, is so efficient. They have all these rotten videos going around now. The first things that happened in Jamaica was they started up all these little shops with all of these terrible videos, violence and sex and evil, you know. And you can rent very cheaply from all these places. But good videos are hard to find. So when I come up on a trip like this, I beg from people, like the Disney videos and nice videos, so that I can have enough of them back there so the children don't get up at night to show the junk.
Yeah.
It takes a lot of vigilance, you know.
We're talking with 2 visitors in our area, Father Makasa from Uganda, which is about how many miles would you say? You don't have any idea. It's got to be 8 or 10.
Halfway around the world.
It must be 8,000 or more. And Father Waltz from Jamaica. Or as I say when I'm in Shazy, I want to say Haitians work for Donald Green, but they aren't. They're Jamaicans. I always say Haitians, but they're Jamaican, and they're here for a short time. We're going to take a short break. We're going to come back and conclude. Father Waltz has got to be in Denimora in less than an hour, and Father Makasa, I'm sure, has other things he wants to do, so please come back with us. It'll just be a minute. We'll be back. We have no planned program. We just try to wing it as we come here. So, Father Makasa, is there anything that you would like to say to the people out there, to me and everybody, that we didn't ask you that in closing?
Yes, thank you. I would like first of all to thank the people for the help they have given me and given us in the past, because with their help we were able to put up a new parish, as I said. And now I would like to appeal to everybody of goodwill that they continue helping us, especially to be able to run our pastoral programs, like the one I said about AIDS control program, whereby we need a vehicle to be able to go around to the people, to talk to the people, and then to carry out our Christian education program through schools, whereby trained catechists could get small motorcycles and they go to different schools to teach religion to our children. And then perhaps bicycles for our catechists who do a lot of work within their outstations, but they are hindered because of problems of transport, and that would do a tremendous help to us to be able to carry out our mission.
How would people out there do that? Where would they? How would they get the bicycle or the money to you? Is there an organized way to do that?
Through personal contributions to Rita.
To Rita. All right. If anyone is so moved,
Yes.
they want to help Father Makasa in Uganda, you could give a donation. You can't use bicycle because they can't get it to Uganda. It's going to have to be in the form of money, where the money can be used to buy bicycles and so forth, or motorcycles.
It's about $80, and the motorcycle is about $900.
Okay.
Yes, that would help us a lot.
Okay, and you can talk to Rita if you're interested, and I don't know of any fundraising other than donations. Father Waltz, in closing, what if you want to tell me?
Well, I've written a little booklet on family life, and I think it could be very helpful for people. I'm asking $3 for it, and one of those dollars will be for the home.
Okay, how could someone get that book from Rita?
Well, I'm going to give some to Rita.
Okay, so if you're interested in finding the book that Father Waltz, $3, that's a pack of cigarettes just about, I guess, and get that book, and some of that money will be used for Father. And any other way that you raise money, Father? Donations, or
Oh, yes.
remember all the country come and help at the mission center.
Yeah.
It's going to get to you eventually.
But the book is mainly to help people in family life, to help them bring up their children,
Okay.
and to understand the Christian viewpoint on how, on the reasons why we say do it this way and do it that way.
Okay.
And so on.
Now, for you people out there, say, what does a priest know about family life? He has no family. He doesn't know all that. He had a girlfriend. He had a girlfriend up until he was 20 years old. He was going to go into the medical profession. He's led the life here of most of us up until 20 or 22 years old. And he's learned a lot since, did a lot of studying. And
brought up a couple hundred children.
And he's brought up a couple hundred children who listened and did everything he said.
Oh, I wish.
We'd like to at least say hello to Rita while we're here. We got 1 minute left. We'll be right back. Wait, let me put this over here. Wait, no, you're not on yet. Wait till he tell you.
Oh, is that what
Okay, go ahead, Rita.
I thought it was just sitting
I
there.
just want to thank everybody for being so wonderful and helpful to us. And it's such a great joy to have the missionaries with us. I'd like to have everybody be able to enjoy them as we are enjoying them. And we just thank everybody that's been so wonderful to us. It's really been a joy to work with people, an inspiration too. And